Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Winter, and welcome to the Starcraft update. The date is July 14th of 2016. I just returned just a few hours ago from the Starcraft II Community Summit held in California, where myself, alongside dozens of other people, casters, professional players, content creators, even some reporters as well, all met to discuss the current state of StarCraft II and the future of it, and what would be best, what mistakes can we improve on, things like that. First off, I am under a non-disclosure agreement, which means if there's certain things Blizzard does not want, and obviously no one wants to have certain information out there that may or may not happen. So I cannot talk specifically about what exact features or what balance changes or what format changes or something like that actually were discussed. But I can talk about the general idea of the back and forth, the kind of feedback they got, what topics were covered, how I feel about them, and just a general summary of the event itself. So, first off, the event consisted of, it was a larger conference, especially early on was kind of, this is the stuff we want to do. Everybody is meeting in a room together, and the dev team, people like David Kim, speaking on what we did this year, what we want to do next year, and we're talking not next month, not next patch, but next year, all the way through 2017. These are people who've been supporting StarCraft for years and look to continue to do so well into the future. We're not talking like, how are we going to scale it down? No, it's how we're going to scale it up. But the entire theme was, how can we make it better? The dev team is not smaller than it was for Legacy of the Void. It's just everyone's focus now is making the game sustainable. Now, a lot of you have probably heard what is effectively the meme dead game, not as popular as it was. The thing is, I saw the numbers. They have the numbers. I won't say the exact numbers, but for comparison, just as many people play StarCraft every month this month as played 2-3 years ago, on average about this month. It actually, besides obviously major spikes for new expansions where players are playing the campaign, is almost the same as it was a year ago or 2 years ago. So the player base is actually just as large as it ever was. It's just you see it spread out in more different areas, especially things like co-op. So that is the case right now. And also, an interesting thing that I personally know about, but like I think surprised a decent chunk of people, is how many of those people playing are older, like over the age of 25, compared to younger players. It's actually a pretty solid percentage, a lot more than you might expect. So that is also kind of speaks to the longevity of StarCraft and how people are consistently interested in it, and also kind of how you cater your content to people as well. Past that, just the dev team themselves, if you had a question, then they did their best to answer it. Sure, there are plenty of, well, we can't really do that because money or time or just won't affect enough people. But there were no dodge questions. There were explanations for everything, whether it's like, why does it take years to get a ladder revamp or something like that. And I actually got to see and speak with people who make things like that happen and have a long conversation about what exactly goes into making all these changes. Which is why a lot of people expect big announcements from things like this and then don't realize it takes dozens of people months to make this happen, because it's a big game with a lot of things going on, and they're trying to update it to be more modern at the same time as developing all these features and all of that. So to be the Blizzard shill here, of course, is why I'm here. But there is a reason why these changes take so long, and now they're happening at a more rapid pace because of things like the Community Summit, where they're taking... Another thing they mentioned, by the way, this is important, is the last Community Summit was before Legacy of the Void. Legacy of the Void was already happening, most of the features are already there, everybody's going into making this game as good as it can be for the release. So that means the things they spoke about last year were not, like, there was not the time there to really implement a lot of the ideas and changes that people wanted to see. Whereas this time around, the entire focus is not on what's the big new expansion, but on making StarCraft better as quickly as possible without things like expansions, but with new features and other things added to the game. So I think you should see a noticeable difference in response time, I guess you could say, between the last summit and this one. So also, I was speaking on like the topics we went over. What kind of happened is there was a big group discussion where if you had any major questions or concerns, you can ask a question or you can have a discussion with other people in the room. But eventually at some point you kind of break out into specific groups, like maybe you have some pro players discussing balance with David Kim, or you have people like me discussing what features with other community members, what features would people use the most. And so if you were a specific type of content creator or have a specific role like a caster or a player, you're talking with the people you're most relevant to even more on top of the group discussion, everything like that. There were times to break away. It was, you're talking with everybody for, especially the dev team, for hours. And pretty much, I want to say personally, I made that video you guys saw. I made the video before the summit, and I had a lot of feedback, a lot of comments, and of course I have my own ideas. I feel like almost every one of the major questions and topics I wanted to bring up, I was able to bring up, and a lot of them, I'm not going to say like everything that you guys wanted is happening. It's not. There are some things that just cannot happen for one reason or another, or they're just unrealistic. But a lot of the things, a majority, there are some things that Blizzard might not have realized were a priority to people, that now they've gotten all this feedback that they become a priority. Or there are things that they were talking, there were a couple things that Blizzard was like, oh, we think this is a cool idea, and then everybody in the room is... and I think that's actually a pretty big difference because of how they have to allocate the time of the employees and the people developing the game and stuff like that. So I was encouraged by some of the features, like the longer-winded features, like massive UI changes or just design changes in general, and how far ahead they've already looked into implementing these things. We're still talking a 2017 timeframe. We're not talking about any major developments by the end of the year, but early into next year we could see things that completely change the way you, at least repeatedly, a big question that everybody was trying to grapple with was, how do you get someone not only to play the campaign, not to play a few multiplayer matches at the beginning of the season, but instead come back next week or tomorrow and play some more games? And with co-op masteries and mutations, that's been a big way to do that. And finding ways to do that in other modes was a big topic of discussion, because co-op actually had a multiple times more retention rate since mutations and masteries have been added than it did past Legacy of the Void launch, for example. But the summary is, I was very encouraged by what I heard, by what I talked about. I felt like I could get my concerns across, and they might actually make a difference, especially when combined with people who come from other directions, like maybe a pro player or a YouTube content creator or something like that, or a tournament organizer. One of the big topics talked about, of course, was the WCS format, and how best to make it accessible both for fans in general, and for players and teams, and how to incentivize more people to watch and more people to focus on playing. So there was a lot of discussion around that. I'm not going to talk about like the exact details or anything, because I'm sure that will be way different. But that was a big point that everybody was concerned about, because that's pretty much what this whole StarCraft as an esport thing revolves around, right? But there was a lot of time spent on that, just to point that out. Alright, well, since I can't talk about anything particularly, I don't want to just sit here saying, great job, Blizzard, you did a great... Well, I feel like they did. I was happy with it. I feel like most people got their concerns addressed, even if it wasn't necessarily what they wanted. They were able to voice those concerns. I leave it up to everyone else who was attending to give their own opinion. But personally, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed meeting up with a lot of other people that I don't get to see in person more than once or twice a year. And hanging out just in general and talking about StarCraft almost literally every waking moment to other people in person, as opposed to at my webcam like right now. But I enjoyed the experience. Hopefully this gives you a little bit of insight into what actually happens at these type of things, and part of the reason why you're not getting 40 new skins tomorrow and then 3 new co-op commanders the next week. There's a lot of work that goes into all of these things, but as for the next few months, there's going to be some pretty big announcements and some progression of things that Blizzard has already been doing. But we're really looking at 2017 to have some pretty major changes. And I hope I was able to help shape that in the right direction, especially for you guys who watch me, as mostly lower level players just looking for something fun to do on the side, or maybe a competitive esport you can tune into when you want to, and for everyone in general. So thank you guys for watching. This has been the StarCraft update, talking about the Blizzard Community Summit of 2016 in the summer. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the video and you enjoyed the summary. And if you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them in the comments. But remember, I can't talk about like any specific features or decisions. But I just wanted to give you guys as much insight as I could into, well, effectively how StarCraft works and how decisions are made. So thank you guys for watching. See you later.